And gentlemen.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and President.
I want to just thank God for what He has enabled the Nigeria Institute of Soil Science to accomplish in the short period, less than 3 years of its existence. NIS started as a dream, as a desire by members of the executive of the Nigeria Soil Science Society some decades ago. Gradually, the society became increasingly more aware of the utmost importance of the soil in the sustainable land use and food production in Nigeria. The need for an Institute of Soil Science thus became an issue for serious consideration by the society in the last decade and caught the passion and the courage of the leadership, culminating in bringing it to the awareness of the government. After some years of struggle, government gave attention, listened with the society, and NIS was born in 2017. The rest is now history. I want to pay great tribute to the resilience of the leadership of our society. Unfortunately, some of our senior colleagues who saw NIS in the embryo are not alive today to see it grow very fast to become a significant contributor to the economic life of Nigeria. The soil is a unique member of the ecosystem that affects man's livelihood. Hence, a major part of the functions of NIS is to regulate the practice of the profession by soil scientists, ensure that practitioners uphold the ethics of the profession, and advance the education, science, technology, and the art of soil science and crop production, so as to guarantee the sustainability of high quality soils and food security. The first set of professional soil scientists, otherwise known as registered soil scientists, RSS, will have practiced for 1 year by December 2020. And the leadership has considered it very necessary for these professional soil scientists to update their knowledge in some crucial aspects and the latest developments in our profession. The mandatory continuous professional education, MCPE program, was approved by NIS Governing Council for all registered soil scientists to facilitate and enhance their continuous and professional development in compliance is also meant to promote and sustain professional competence for excellent performance of registered soil scientists. Hence, participation forms an important part of the requirements for the renewal of the professional license from 1 year to another one. Therefore, on behalf of NIS and the Soil Science Society of Nigeria, SSN, and the government of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, I wish to express our unreserved appreciation to the Global Soil Partnership, GSP, of the FAO Food and Agricultural Organization for graciously hosting and providing the speakers for the 2020 MCPE via Zoom at no cost to NIS. Let me formally welcome every participant then, particularly the speakers to this program. I wish you all, and all of us indeed, a fruitful time. It is my pleasure, therefore, to declare open the 2020 and the first mandatory continuous professional education program for Nigerian soil scientists. Thank you very much, and God bless. Hello? Hello? Yes. Hello? Hello?
Hello?
Did you hear me? Did you hear me at all?
Yes, we heard you loud and clear, Mr. President.
Thank God.
So, Chairman of NIS Council, distinguished resource persons, colleagues, as the Chairman has welcomed all of us to this inaugural mandatory continuous professional education for registered soil scientists in Nigeria, I wish to also join him to welcome all of us to this very important occasion. Today is going to be very busy. We have 5 presentations to make. Each of the presentations will be for 30 minutes. Thereafter, we are going to have between 5 and 10 minutes of question and answer session. On behalf of NIS Council and the Registrar, Professor V.O. Chude, let me sincerely appreciate FAO, the Global Soil Partnership Secretariat, and all our resource persons who have agreed to partake in this training program. So I welcome you all. We are going to start with the first. The registrar is not here because he's attending to a budget defense in the National Assembly. So in the meantime, I will hold forth for him. We are going to take the first presentation, which is on digital soil mapping and pedometrics by Konstantin Viatkin. Konstantin is a geographer and international consultant on soil information who joined the Global Soil Partnership Secretariat in 2017 to assist with the preparation and compilation of the Global Soil Organic Carbon Map. Before that, he worked for 5 years as a remote sensing researcher in Kharkiv in Ukraine. He holds a master's degree from Karazin Kharkiv National University in Ukraine in geography. His main scientific interest is digital soil mapping using remote sensing. I will therefore welcome Konstantin to please proceed with his presentation on digital soil mapping and pedometrics for 30 minutes. Thank you very much. Konstantin, please.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everybody. The topic of our first lecture today is digital soil mapping and pedometrics. And the first is the obvious question, what is digital soil mapping and pedometrics? What are we going to talk about today? First, what is soil mapping per se? When we talk about soil mapping, we mean actually the creation of cartographic models of soils and soil properties. We understand that each map is a model or a simplified approximation of reality, which describes spatial distribution of soils or soil properties. And in a traditional way, this kind of cartographic models are created by soil scientists based on their knowledge of how soils are distributed in their country, and based on their knowledge how this distribution follows certain elements of terrain, relief, or geology. What is pedometrics? Pedometrics is an application of mathematical and statistical methods for the study of the distribution and genesis of soils. As you see on the screen, pedometrics.org is a website of pedometrics group in the IUSS, International Union of Soil Sciences. So this discipline focuses on the mathematical and statistical study of soils in a numeric way, not in a qualitative way describing soil properties and types with words and qualitative assessments, but with quantitative assessments through mathematical functions. When we join the two together, we have DSM. So digital soil mapping, which is sometimes referred to as pedometric mapping or predictive soil mapping, is a data-driven generation of soil property and class maps that is based on the use of statistical methods. So basically it is the application of mathematical and statistical methods developed by pedometrics for soil mapping. Now let's talk a little bit about the concepts of mapping. When we map any spatial phenomena, first we need to understand what kind of phenomena is that. Is it a discrete phenomena or a continuous one? When we look at the image on the screen, we can see that in reality, some objects are discrete, meaning they have very clear boundaries. We can clearly distinguish where an object starts and where it ends. The examples of such discrete objects are, for example, lakes, rivers, roads, or cities. On the other hand, there are also continuous phenomena. For continuous phenomena, you cannot see a boundary of it. You cannot say where it starts or where it ends, but rather it behaves like a continuous field covering all the area, but having differences in properties in different parts of the area. And the examples here you see on the screen is elevation. Elevation does not start somewhere or end somewhere. It covers all the territory. But of course, there are mountains and there are valleys. There are differences in elevation, but they are all joined in a one single surface without any boundaries. So let us ask ourselves the questions. When we speak about soils, are soils discrete or continuous? Do soils have clear boundaries or do they constitute a continuous surface? What about soil properties? When we speak about soil carbon or texture or pH, are they continuous or discrete? Can we say where carbon starts and where carbon ends? And what about soil measurements? When we go to the field and measure some soil properties, are our measurements continuous or discrete? So when we think about these questions, we would understand that in the field, soil appears as a rather continuous phenomena, and it covers almost all the land surface, though its qualities differ from place to place. However, we often classify soils into discrete soil types that have boundaries. These boundaries are not exactly natural, but are based on our way of classification. we select certain classification criteria. Based on that, we divide soils into a certain soil types that we can delineate with more or less clear boundaries. When we talk about soil properties, then again, we understand that they are mostly continuous. We cannot say that carbon starts somewhere and ends somewhere. No, it's a value that characterizes the whole soils. But of course, we can see the special differences between different places in terms of quantity of that carbon. However, when we take soil samples and measure soil properties, our observations are discrete. When we take a sample, we take it only in one point on the surface. And the measurements that we do is actually true only for that particular point where we took our sample. If we move from that point to another location, we might find that soil properties are completely different from what we measured in another one. Therefore, while soil properties themselves exist everywhere and constitute a continuous surface on the surface of the earth, when we measure them, our measurements are discrete in the points of our sampling. Therefore, our task of when mapping these soil properties is to predict continuous soil property or soil class also in every point of the land surface based on our discrete measurements of soil sampling. How do we do it? Well, first of all, we must consider two types of representation of spatial phenomena in digital mapping. The first type that we know from traditional soil maps is vector representation. With the vector soil maps, we must first classify soils into certain types. These types are theoretically discrete. Then we map the boundaries between these soil types. And then each soil type as a discrete object has certain soil properties. However, as we thought, in reality, soils are not discrete, and the soil types are actually simplifications that we derive from certain classification systems. Therefore, another representation is usually used in digital soil mapping and pedometrics when speaking about soil properties. This is a raster representation. In a raster representation, a map is not divided into certain objects with clear boundaries. Rather, a raster constitutes a continuous surface that is divided into grid cells or pixels. For each grid cell or pixel, we have a value of a certain property. The detalization of such maps is characterized by the raster resolution. For example, 1 pixel can correspond to an area of 1 square kilometer on land. That means that for every square kilometer of our mapped area, we will have a certain value of soil property that we are mapping. So how can we create digital maps of soil properties? When we create the map, first we start always from sampling. Yeah, we go to the field, we take soil samples, and luckily now we have GPS devices. So for each of our sample, we can record GPS coordinates. When we do so, after the sampling campaign, when we return to our institute, we organize all our data in a table. In this table, we will have numbers of our soil profiles or soil sampling locations. We will have geographic coordinates from GPS, longitude and latitude. If we work with soil profiles, we will have characterization of depth for each sample. And then when we get our results from the laboratory, for each sample, we will have the measured values of soil properties. If we represent such data on the map, we will see that it will be shown as points. Points in the locations where we took those samples. So now our task will be how to transform our data from the values in the points to the map, to the data in every square kilometer, in every cell of our raster covering all the mapped territory. How to do that? Well, digital soil mapping takes its concept from the classical soil science, starting from 19th century Russian scientist Dokuchaev. And the main revolutionary idea of Dokuchaev was that genesis and evolution of soils is the result of interaction of a number of environmental parameters, such as climate, organisms, parent material, relief, and time. Meaning that soil is not something isolated that we can only study on its own. No, soil is actually a product of its environment. Therefore, to study soil, we must study the environment that has formed it. This idea was conceptualized in a way of a general model in 1941 by Swiss-American scientist Hans Jenny. He said that if soils are a product of the environment and are inseparably bound to the environment, then we can say that soils and soil properties can be characterized as a function of a number of environmental parameters, which are soil forming factors also. So he proposed this conceptual formula that you can see on the screen, where soil is a function of climate, organisms, relief, parent material, and time. Of course, in 1940s, that was more of a theoretical conceptual thing, because it was very difficult to mathematically, through data, characterize these soil forming factors. However, now, with all the progress in computing, in the digital sciences, in the remote sensing that allowed us to have accurate digital elevation model for the whole Earth, accurate and renewable satellite imagery, and other wonderful applications, the monitoring of climate and so on. Now we actually have the data to characterize soil forming factors in every square kilometer of our land. Therefore, this idea from purely theoretical became a practical concept of digital soil mapping. And one of the pioneers of this was Alex McBratney, who proposed another kind of conceptual model with the same idea. It's called Scorpion model. And it says that soil attribute we want to predict is a function of other soil properties, climate, organisms, relief, parent material, age, location. And another important moment that he noticed is that although we can predict with certain confidence soil properties from these soil forming factors, our prediction will never be perfect. So in the end, we always need to add an epsilon, which corresponds to errors or uncertainties of our prediction, the function residuals. So, in order to realize the digital soil mapping, we need the following. First, we need our soil observations in points. This is the data we collected from the field and analyzed in the laboratory. Then we need to join it with scorpon layers, or the layers that characterize our soil forming factors. This could be existing soil maps, traditional soil maps. This could be maps of climate or climate characteristics like temperature or precipitation. This can be maps of land cover that characterize our organisms or vegetation. This can be digital elevation model, geology, lithological maps, and so on. When we bring together our soil observations with the soil forming factors, we can create a mathematical function that will help us predict our target soil property from the data on soil forming factors. And as a result, we can create a map of this soil property. This general framework can be applied basically to any soil property. You can predict sand, clay, organic carbon, pH, or any other soil property if you can properly characterize the factors that are influencing it. So the workflow is collect soil data, collect predictors, join them together in a model, and create a soil map. How to do it on practice? On practice, this process usually entails many different steps, including both geographical operations, GIS operations, and mathematical statistical modeling. Therefore, it is convenient to use programming tools to create maps in a way of digital soil mapping. We usually use R as a very powerful and flexible tool that is currently popular in the digital soil mapping community. In R, we have many packages that are being developed and continuously updated by soil scientists that are very useful particular for digital soil mapping. You can see some of the examples of such packages in the screen. So when we realize our digital soil mapping workflow in R, we have certain steps. The first step is to prepare predictors. Predictors are the maps that characterize our soil forming factors: relief, climate, vegetation, geology. We often use a lot of remote sensing data, satellite imagery, that also help to characterize vegetation or land cover and so on. We usually do some harmonization on the predictors. This can be, for example, principal components analysis in case some of our predictors are similar to each other and we need to reduce collinearity between them. This preparation is basically defined by the mathematical method that we will use for mapping. Because whenever we use certain mathematical statistical method, we need to be aware of the constraints of this method, and therefore we must rigorously prepare our data before statistical analysis. Secondly, we prepare our soil data. So we must also very rigorously prepare the data we got from the field and from the laboratory and put it in appropriate format that will be readable by the software and that will characterize all the necessary things in our measurements. This must, of course, include identifiers, coordinates, characterization of depth, and the measurements of our soil properties. Usually it is done in a table format, and the exact format is defined by, again, by the way how you organize your script and what kind of functions you use for mapping. Soil data is also usually needs some harmonization. For example, when we work with different depths from soil profile sampling, from the traditional soil survey, we usually need to harmonize the depth of different horizons into a certain standard depth layers. And for that, we use other mathematical models, for example, splines. We always try to achieve normal distribution for our data because that is an important constraint for many statistical methods that we use later. So a necessary step, though not mandatory in all cases, might be the transformation of our data to achieve the distribution close to a normal one. Finally, when we prepared properly both of our soil data and of our environmental predictors, we overlay them or put them together. After we put them together, we can create a regression model for mapping. What is a regression? Regression is a method that allows us to study relationships between the variables. Variable y is a dependent variable, or our target variable that we want to predict, while variable x is a predictor or a factor that influences our target variable. In the process of regression, we create a certain mathematical function that describes y, or our dependent variable, as a function of x variables or of predictors. It is quite easy to graphically see regression on the example of a linear regression. It's the most simple example. Here, y would be the soil property that we are mapping, while x1, x2, and other x's will be the values of our predictors or of our soil forming factors like temperature, precipitation, elevation, slope, amount of vegetation or class of the land cover, and so on. And of course, as you can see on the plot on the right, whenever we create a function which is represented by a blue line, it will still not be perfect, so it will not exactly match with the observation data which you see as points, as black points here. So in any case, when we work with mathematical modeling and regression, we will have differences, or these red lines, error terms, which are differences between our model and our observed data. The good thing, however, is that we can calculate and quantify these errors. So we are aware how much our model, our map, is accurate and how much deviation from the map we can expect in reality. Of course, linear regression is the simplest example, and most relationships in nature are not linear. So in digital soil mapping, we usually apply more sophisticated functions based on machine learning. You can see a number of functions on the screen, like random forest, support vector machines, Bayesian methods, cubist, quantile random forest, and neural networks. These are all methods that are frequently used by researchers to describe soil properties through environmental covariates or predictors. Finally, one of the biggest advantages of digital soil mapping is that when we create a map in such a way, we can numerically quantify its accuracy and uncertainty. We can validate the map and see how much our map differs from real observations in reality. And therefore, we can understand how accurate it is, how can we improve it. Another big thing is the estimation of uncertainty. When we speak of uncertainty, we understand that whenever we create a map, we inevitably create a certain level of error in every point of our prediction. Uncertainty estimation allows us to numerically quantify this possible margin of error in every point of our land surface. And usually we do it through probability distributions. In such a way, we can characterize the 95% confidence interval. It is the interval from our predicted value where the true value of the soil property in a given point lies. Finally, I would like to show you examples of maps that were made with the digital soil mapping technique. The top one is the Global Soil Organic Carbon Map, which was created jointly by the members of the Global Soil Partnership, including Nigeria, who are preparing their own national maps of soil organic carbon using digital soil mapping. And it has been published by FAO as an online service available for everyone. And below are maps of soil salinity, of electric conductivity and its uncertainty, which is the work that Global Soil Partnership is doing now. Thank you for your attention. I hope I fit in the time. So if there are any questions, now we can discuss.
Thank you very much for very brilliantly presenting the topic. And I know my fellow soil scientists will be interested in having a copy of this. Maybe we can discuss that later. But we are going to spend 5 to 10 minutes for questions. Please, participants, if you have any questions, use the digital to either raise your hand or you can send your question using the digital platform of question and answer. We only devote, because we still have 4 more presentations, we will devote only 10 minutes maximum to this session. Please, let me see your hand. Lukman Saleh, can you allow him to ask his question? Lukman Saleh. Yes, go ahead.
Lukman, you can now unmute yourself. You need to click on unmute.
Lukman, unmute yourself.
Yes, I have already unmuted myself.
Okay.
Thank you very much. I am Saleh Lukman from Osman Danford University, Sokoto.
Yes, we can.
One is recommendation, sir. I wish to recommend the chairman, the panelists, and all those who organize this kind of Zoom meeting. And it is very educative. Thank you very much, sir.
Okay, thank you very much. Abdullahi Saleh. Abdullahi Salem. Okay, unmute yourself, please. Abdullahi, unmute yourself. Dr. Ajiboye, if you can also allow Ajiboye if Saleh is not ready.
Yes.
Okay, Ajiboye, please go ahead.
Good morning, sir. Please, I want to ask, what package have you used in the developing your soil models?
What packages?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, We use actually a whole lot of packages during the mapping for different tasks. So for general purposes of working with spatial data, we use packages like SP, raster, BLYR, DBLYR, and so on. If you are interested in the models per se, the major package for modeling that we use is called Caret. It is a package that allows for automatic fitting of models with cross-validation. And it can be applied for different models. It has linear models, random forests, SVM, everything you can get. So whenever you use it, of course, you will also need the package for the particular model that you're applying. For example, the most popular models in digital soil mapping are probably random forest, cubist, neural network is kind of a new thing, but mostly random forest and cubist are very popular. So you can use them within Caret package, and you can use them also separately in the packages like random forest. Another popular method is combining the regression with interpolation, with kriging. So for kriging, we usually use packages called GStat. It is the main package for geostatistical interpolations. And another useful package is AutoMap, which also needs GStat to function in, but AutoMap allows you to do kriging more automatically by fitting the variogram automatically rather than needing to feed it in a semi-automatic way and inputting some parameters. Also, there are specific packages that were developed for soil science. If you work with soil profile data, a useful package is called AQP, Algorithms for Quantitative Pedology. Another great package is called GSIF, which was developed by Tom Hengel specifically for digital soil mapping. And another package that I recommend is a package called Soil Assessment, which is being developed by my colleague in FAO, Cristiano Muto, which also has functions specifically useful for different soil mapping purposes.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Basi Udo. Can you allow Basi Udo to ask his question? Basi Udo. Basi Udo, yes. Basi Udo, unmute yourself and ask your question, please. Unmute yourself and ask your question. Okay, if you are not ready, Professor James Adediran. James Adediran. James Adediran, unmute yourself.
Good. Can you hear me, please?
Yes, go ahead.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. You've really spoken well to educate us. But what I'm worried about is about the clear boundaries of our soil types we normally produce. Many a times, some people use or some scientists use agroecological boundary. And you've talked of natural boundary, and some people use geographical boundary and geopolitical boundary. Which one is the best to use? Because it varies from one country to another. Which one is the best to use? Is it the agroecological? Is it the geopolitical or geographical or other types? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for your question. And I see in the chat there are several related questions. Let me briefly share my screen again. So I will try to answer these questions together relative to each other. So of course, when we talk about the boundaries in traditional mapping, we want to use natural boundaries, like you say, geoecological boundaries, and not geopolitical boundaries, because political boundaries are man-made and usually do not characterize the soil forming factors. We must understand that even when we are talking about traditional soil mapping, yeah, with delineating boundaries, we still come back to the drivers of soil formation. We understand that the soil types or taxonomic units that we delineate come from certain environmental parameters, certain natural components that are influencing soil. And therefore, we are using boundaries of these natural components to delineate boundaries of soils. So we can use, for example, geology, we can use certain terrain features, we can use certain agroecological, agroclimatical zoning for delineating different kinds of soils, because these are the soil forming factors. Now, one of the soil forming factors called organisms also include human activity. So when we talk about anthropogenic soils, then anthropogenic boundaries are also relevant. But here we are talking not that much about geopolitical boundaries, but more of boundaries of land use. Okay. So in any case, land use can be very useful both for creating vector maps and for creating digital soil mapping maps, when we understand that different kinds of land use have a big effect on soil property. Then there was a question somewhat related to it in the chat, that how do we go from point observations to a map? Well, the thing is that in digital soil mapping, our soil observations are in points. But if we want to use other layers in modeling, we need to have these layers already as maps. So for example, if we want to predict organic carbon using the data on clay and bulk density, then we need clay and bulk density to be already mapped. And if we want to use a soil map, we can also do that as one of the input Scorpion layers. So traditional soil mapping and digital soil mapping can be combined in a way that from a traditional soil map, you already have a spatial layer characterizing some special differences between the soils, yeah, based on the classification. And we can use this traditional map as one of the predictors here, one of the predictors to predict the data we have in points. So we need to combine our point data with maps, with soil maps, with climate maps, with terrain maps, digital elevation models, with satellite imagery. We cannot map something when we have data only in points. We have data only in points and no maps whatsoever, then we do not have any reference how the spatial distribution of soil forming factor goes. This is true, by the way, both for traditional mapping or for digital soil mapping. In traditional mapping, for example, you also have, for example, soil profiles in certain points, but then when you delineate soil contours, you need underlying information about relief. For example, you take a topographic map that shows you relief, you understand the terrain features and how your soils are probably following them. Yeah, you can also have a geological map or other kind of maps that help you delineate the soil profiles. Same in digital soil mapping. You need data in points and you need already specialized data, already maps of some environmental features in order to create a map of that soil property.
Thank you very much. We don't have time again. We have spent over 10 minutes now, but I still have two people here. If they are going to limit their questions, and I hope the resource person will also limit it. Can we have Edwin Obo? 30 seconds, please. And Sani Idris, make your question very short. Sani Idris.
So thank you, Mr. Presenter. Are you hearing me?
Yes.
30 seconds.
Yeah, thank you. I just want to ask from your experience, what are the major challenges associated with the applications of these models, and how can a researcher overcome that? And how do a researcher reduce, the error value in the model? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Please, before you answer it, Kotiantin, before you answer it, please, there are some questions in the question and answer panel. 4 questions. Can you look at them and see if you can summarize all of them together in the next 2-3 minutes?
Let me see.
Trenchard, EBR.
Yeah, okay. I see the questions and answers, and there are something in the chat. Yeah, okay. So for the questions that was asked about the challenges, that's an excellent question. And the challenges are mostly related to adequate data. So we always need 2 types of data: the soil data from soil and the predictors data that characterize soil forming factors. And it is very important that both kinds of data is representative enough and detailed enough for our area of study. For example, if we want to map our whole country, but we have soil survey data only from a small part of it, then although we can create a map for the whole country using the DSM procedure, this map will have a lot of uncertainty and probably a lot of error because our original data was not representative for all the soils. Same goes to environmental predictors. Sometimes we have good data from soil survey, but we lack information on soil forming factors that are relevant for this kind of thing that we are mapping. For example, we are mapping salinity that is related to excess irrigation, but we may not have data about irrigation. In this case, our prediction may not be accurate and may have a lot of uncertainty because we are unable to characterize our soil property by the available data on soil forming factors. So these are the 2 major constraints that actually require a lot of preparation for data collection. I see many questions about what kind of packages are we using, can we receive a training and so on.
You have answered that before?
Yeah, I can see that there is a lot of interest to the topic, and I can say that Global Soil Partnership frequently organizes some regional trainings on this matter for selected institutions in each country. And some Nigerian institutions participate in our trainings regularly, so maybe they will share the materials from such trainings with other people in the country, which will be great for and also there are lots of very good material online, very free in the DSM community. There is a website by Tomislav Hengel with his free book on digital soil mapping that discusses many of these questions and issues. And in any case, I very much encourage you to search online because digital soil mapping community is very open, very much publishing online, having guides online, all the software packages and their descriptions are available online for free. You just need to search it and you surely will find it. And also please refer to the colleagues who attend to FAO trainings for more personalized help.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. And I think his email is also there. So we can, after this lecture, interact with him on one-to-one. We're already running late. So we'll go to the second presentation, which is on sustainable soil management. It's going to be given by Carolina Oliveira Sanchez. Please, can we mute our speakers? Please mute all of them. Thank you. Carolina is an agronomist and international consultant on soil management with over 20 years of experience on soils in the field and in the laboratory. She works with the Global Soil Partnership Secretariat as a facilitator for the Latin America and Caribbean Soil Partnership and as a support in the field for Pillar 1 on sustainable soil management. Prior to joining the Global Soil Partnership, Carolina has worked as a consultant on soil fertility management in the livestock, viticulture, and horticulture sectors, and on development projects for international cooperation agencies. She holds a master's degree in agronomy from Paris University. Carolina, please, the floor is yours for 30 minutes. Then we have another 10 minutes of question and answer. Thank you very much.
Yes, hello. Thank you very much. Good afternoon to all the participants, and thanks for the invitation to the Soil Institution of Nigeria. Well, this presentation is about sustainable soil management and all the documents and tools that we are working on in the Global Soil Partnership. Let me make a presentation. Okay. So to promote sustainable soil management, the first question was, what are the soil functions? What is familiar for you? The different soil functions. We had then the definition of sustainable soil management in the voluntary guidelines for sustainable soil management in 2017, published by the Global Soil Partnership. In this publication, the sustainable soil management is defined as is sustainable if the supporting, provisioning, regulating, and cultural services provided by soil are maintained or enhanced without significantly impairing either the soil functions that enable those services or biodiversity. So this is very important to start from this definition, and the balance between supporting and provisioning services for plant production, the regulating services for water quality and availability, and for atmospheric greenhouse gas emissions. This is our starting point. So we're taking into account the food security functions, as we know that 95% of our food comes from the soil. Also, for example, providing clean water and the available water capacity of the soil. Also, preserving soil biodiversity, as we know that soils host a quarter of our planet's biodiversity. And the role of mitigating and adapting to climate change. And we know that there is more organic carbon in the soil than there is in our ground vegetation and atmosphere combined. So this is the principles of the sustainable soil management in the Global Soil Partnership. We have also this starting point that is the publication about the status of the world soil resources. And we know that, for example, in Africa, in sub-Saharan Africa, We have the three main threats: soil erosion, organic carbon loss, and nutrient imbalance. And we have all for all the regions, of course, in these publications. Talking about voluntary guidelines for sustainable soil management, we have here some recommendation about how to minimize these threats: soil erosion, soil structure degradation, nutrients imbalance, salinization, contaminants or pollutions, sealing, and also, well, the optimized use of agrochemicals and fertilizers. And what we want to do is to increase the surface cover, for example, soil organic matter, water deficiency, and soil biodiversity. So starting from there, we have developed many tools that we are going to present today. And I am going to present specifically this sustainable soil management protocol. We have also the MRV protocol about soil organic carbon, the International Code of Conduct for Sustainable Soil Management of Fertilizers, and the Soil Doctors program that you are going to see later. But specifically in the case, I will present two specific examples of implementation of this sustainable soil management. The first one is about a project, and we have many of these projects in the field implementing the sustainable soil management guidelines, the voluntary guidelines. This is an example of a global project which is implemented in Africa and also in East Asia, and is the sustainable soil management for soil nutrition, for nutrition sensitive agriculture. We have in this project, we are trying to do the relationship between the soil and nutrition, human nutrition, and this continuum to crop, soil, crop, and human. For the implementation of this project, we review the existing documentation, and also the most important is to develop the capacities in the countries and to develop policies to enable a better use of fertilizers. Specifically here, we are talking about micronutrients in the soil and the relationship between micronutrients and human health. So this is a specific, a very specific implementation of this nutrient imbalance in the soil and the voluntary guidelines. We have developed here, for example, what are the roles of these nutrients and micronutrients in the plants and the roles in the human beings. And we are implementing through field trials to demonstrate how the micronutrients are influencing the soil, the human health. Well, this is the first example. And then the other tool, the tool that we have developed for sustainable soil management is the Sustainable Soil Management Protocol to assess the sustainable soil management. This is a tool for the implementation of the voluntary guidelines. We have constructed this tool in a participatory way with the country's participants and the country's members and partners. And the third version of this protocol was presented in the plenary assembly in June and was endorsed in September 2020, this year. So this protocol pretends to evaluate how the soil management practices have an incidence or impact the soil. The objective is, well, based, as I told you at the beginning, based on the definition of sustainable soil management and the voluntary guidelines. The assessment is based on a set of chemical, physical, and biological indicators. And the principle is not to evaluate, for example, the soil health, but to compare a non-sustainable soil management to a sustainable soil management. And with this comparison in the same type of soil, we can say that the sustainable soil management is well implemented or not, based on the ecosystem services and on the functions of the soil. So we did, we selected four recommended indicators based on the physical, chemical, and biological properties of the soil. These recommended indicators, well, of course, we chosen as they are widely developed, and also they have harmonized methodologies around all the countries. And they will be considered as reference indicators. That means that we can do, for example, later mapping about these indicators and map how they are in all the regional surfaces or in the countries or in a specific region. So this recommended set of indicators are the soil productivity. This is an indirect indicator, but this is very important to know how the properties of the soils are being traduced. And the soil organic carbon as the chemical property to be followed. The soil organic carbon is showing, well, many properties and the capacity of the soil to react. The soil physical properties, essentially bulk density is evaluated here, but also the available water capacity. When soil bulk density cannot be measured, or as a complementary physical property, we can take the soil available water. And as a biological indicator, we choose the respiration rate. This is an indicator of the soil biological activity, and can be associated, for example, with pollution or with all the conditions that are not favorable in the soil. But this cannot be directly related to biodiversity, only to biological activity. So with these four main indicators, we are doing implementing this protocol, and when we will have enough data, we can create an index of sustainable soil management. Also, we have in this protocol, we have additional indicators for specific cases, and particularly here we are looking for the threats and for the specific conditions of degradation of the soil. For example, we see here cases of erosion or of salinity, or well, bad management of the soil here with the practices of burn. And in these cases, we will select complementary additional indicators to be measured. This can be, for example, soil nutrients, and here we choose specifically phosphorus as an indicator. Soil erosion, soil salinity with electric conductivity, soil biological activity through other types of indicators, for example, enzymal activity. Also soil biodiversity through, in particular, the macrofauna of the soil. Soil pH, here we find this available water capacity, and also some field tests like infiltration tests or penetration resistance tests that can be also chosen as indicators. And here we have a special indicator, which is soil pollution. Soil pollution needs to be taken into account in all the evaluation of the soil management. To implement the soil management protocol, we have defined some specific step-by-step, and we are developing an annex to this document with all the methodologies related and recommended. So we have here summarized the recommended set of indicators, the additional indicators. First, we recommend to select the areas of study with geographical coordinates, to plan the SSM assessment, to know how we are going to go to the field, how we are going to sample the soil, and then the final assessment. Here we can use some monitoring tools, some additional tools, very useful. For example, here the remote sensing tools, like for example, the NDVI, which is a cover index, and bare soil index. And then when we have all this study, we design a monitoring plan to follow up how the sustainable soil management practices are having an impact on the soil. So this will be developed specifically on how to plan, how to assess, and how to sample. As I told you, these will be specific methodologies using the remote sensing tools, the laboratory measurements, the field measurements, and at the end, we will have the interpretation of the SSM assessment. We hope to implement this protocol in and to have a great number of measurements around the world to define then an index of sustainable soil management. This is our objective at the end. We are in the first stage of validation of this protocol in the field. Well, as I told you, with soil data analysis, field observations, and all the samplings and the laboratory analysis. And this, the objective, of course, is to evaluate the management practices. The management practices can be based, for example, on the organic fertilization as composting or lombricompost. And very important here, the use of our waste and the use in the soil to better manage the organic carbon of the soil. Also important practices as erosion control. And we have a list of these practices in the manual that we are working on in this moment, the Soil Organic Carbon Manual of Practices, that we will going to illustrate in this publication. Cover crop, green fences, and these are all the kind of practices that we can evaluate, not only related to soil, but also related to water management and land management in general. And what we are going to measure is the impact that these practices have directly on the soil, even with the uses as ecosystem protection and ecosystem conservation. So this was all my presentation. Thank you for the invitation and for the attention.
Good.
Thank you very much for this presentation. You kept your time. We have gained some few minutes. So we are going to take 5 to 10 minutes of questions. Like we did, please, if you have questions, you can raise your hand electronically, or you can test the questions to the question and answer panel there. So where are the questions now? Can you please unmute Musa M. Umar? Musa, please ask your question. Hello.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you, Carolina, for that presentation. I just want to know if this sustainable soil management is completely different from the sustainable land management. Do they have a different objective, or they're just the same thing in a different acronyms? Yeah, thank you very much.
Okay.
Okay, thank you for your question. Yes, sustainable soil management is included in sustainable land management. And as for example, if you know the WOCAT methodologies or all kind of land evaluation, land includes, of course, soils, water, and biodiversity. So we are trying to quantify the specific impacts of these practices on the soil specifically. And this is included on land management, of course. This is the difference. Soil is included on land management.
Yes.
Thank you. Can you, Azubike Odunze? Can you ask Odunze to talk? There's no more there. Then can we go to Chukwubuka Vincent Azuka? Azuka.
Eh?
Okay, ask your question, please.
Zoom meeting. You can increase your knowledge.
Who is talking? Please mute your speaker. Please, let's go to Okore Ikoku.
Okay, can I ask my question now?
I can.
Ask your question now.
Can I ask it now?
Please go ahead.
Okay. Please, I want to find out from the presenter why they decided to choose or choose bulk density or available water capacity among all the soil physical properties as one of the key, representing factors of sustainable soil management. That of organic matter, we understand that organic matter controls virtually most chemical properties and even biological and physical. But why did they choose bulk density and or available water capacity as
she will respond. She will respond.
Okay.
Please,
okay. Thank you.
Please, smart. You should rename yourself. Techno, Canon. You should rename yourself if you want us to be recognized. Those with all this acronym, please rename yourself properly. Is James Adidina asking a question?
Okay, I can answer the...
Yes, please go ahead, Carolina. Please go ahead.
Thank you for your question. Yes, this was not easy to choose effectively the physical parameters, and there was also a question of developed methodologies and harmonized methodologies for this measurement. So that is why, for example, bulk density sometimes is not easy to take the samples to measure bulk density. But bulk density is an analysis that is included now in many soil laboratories. And for example, for the measurement of organic carbon in the soil, you need the measurement of bulk density. So this is more and more developed parameter in the world, and we choose that for this reason. Soil with available water, because available water, the methodologies, the sampling methodologies are perhaps easier than sometimes the bulk density. So these two physical analyses are complementary. But we also recommend a complete observation of the soil in the field, of course, the observation.
Please mute yourself.
I'll explain to you.
Umar, mute yourself. You are disturbing us. Okay, thank you very much, Carolina.
I wanted to answer also two questions.
Please,
that I
go ahead. Go ahead.
question and answers. The question about enzymes and the biochemical activity of the soil. We considered enzymes, of course, and we proposed enzymes as complementary and additional indicators, as enzymes are not the same. We have not the same enzymes measured depending on the countries. Some countries proposed one type of enzyme and some countries proposed other. So for the moment, we proposed it as an additional indicator, and it's very good if the countries can complement the respiration rate with the enzyme activity. But for the moment, we don't know which enzyme we are going to recommend as a main indicator. And also I saw a question about soil pollution, how we do the analysis of soil pollution as an indicator. We start by a risk analysis of pollution risk analysis. This means that we start off a lot of questions about which fertilizer you are using, how you do the pest control, where does the water come from, what are your neighbors if you have, for example, an industry near from your field. All this is included in the risk analysis, risk pollution analysis, and then we are going to say if we need to follow one specific pollutant or not. As you know, all the contaminants, you need to analyze specifically what you need to see. So you need to do a previous analysis to know what you are going to search or what you are going to measure, because it's not easy if you are looking for an insecticide which is from the family of the organophosphorates, where if you have another type of insecticide used in the field, you will not see it in the analysis. So this is why we do a previous soil pollution risk analysis.
Thank you very much, Carolina. James Adediran, can you align him?
Thank you, Carolina. Two of my questions have been answered by Carolina. The third one is, I hear of voluntary guidelines for sustainable, soil management. Why is it voluntary? Is it, what do they mean by voluntary guidelines? That's one. Secondly, what is FAO doing in ensuring compliance or implementation of this international protocol, since many countries or different countries manufacture different kinds of fertilizers or import different kinds of fertilizers for farmers' use? Those are my two questions that follow. Thank you very much, Caroline.
Caroline, can you take it, please? Carolina, can you answer the question? Can you respond to it? Carolina, can you respond to the question, please?
I think we lost Carolina. She must have had a problem with the connection.
Okay, then.
Yeah. Here she is back. Here she is back. Maybe you can ask the question again.
Excuse me. Yes, I don't
know. James Adediran, can you ask the question again? Carolina was off.
Yeah, I heard the question about why voluntary guidelines.
Yes.
Okay. Yes, all that we do in the Global Soil Partnership is by mandate voluntary. The countries cannot be, this cannot be an obligation for the countries to implement that. All is voluntary, and this is the way that we publish to remind always that these are voluntary and participatory activities that we propose in the United Nations.
Thank you very much.
Okay, Techno did not rename himself. I would love you to rename yourself so that we know who is asking this question.
Mr. Moderator, President. Hello.
I'm with you, Chairman, sir.
Yes, please. Can we try to put the questions together so that they will ask the question and the speaker will answer all of them together? It will save time.
We'll take 2-3 more, then we can go. Please allow Olufumila your Ande. Ande, can you talk now? Ande, please. If not, we can ask Ado Yusuf. Ado Yusuf, unmute yourself and talk.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead. Ado Yusuf.
Hello.
Yourself.
I've done that. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
I said my question has to do with the sampling depth of the soil
indicators that were projected, is it the same for annual crop and also for tree crops? Thank you.
Okay, Carolina, hold on. Let's take this last question, then you can ask.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for the question. Yes, the sampling method and the sampling design will take into account the land use system and also the homogeneity or heterogeneity or the field and the extension of the field. So we have a specific methodology to determine the better sampling method, and of course trying to limit the number of samples that we need to take. And also we need always to compare one soil to another with or without the management practices. This is the more important. We are not characterizing soil, but we are only trying to see what is the impact of the practices on the soil. I had two questions to answer in the chat. One about climate change, how this protocol is taking into account climate change. Yes, of course, through soil organic carbon, we are evaluating climate change, but we have a specific, and you will see it later, a specific protocol, the MRV protocol, included in the recarbonization of soils program, which is more specific for climate change. And why we choose salinity instead of acidity in the additional indicators? Well, we didn't exclude acidity at all. We are just recommending some additional indicators depending on the problems that we are and the threats that we are observing in the soil. So acidity can be included also, of course. And all the indicators that the countries want to include there can be included, of course. And our reference point are the 4 main indicators that are going to help us and to have a reference.
Thank you very much. We thank you very much for your presentation and for the response you have to our questions. I think I will continue the discussion offline. Your email address is here, and you can also provide us with some of the resources, just like Constantine did, while we continue with the next paper. The next presentation is on the International Code of Conduct for Sustainable Use and Management of Fertilizers. This is going to be presented by Yuzin Tong. Yuzin is a soil researcher and an associate professional officer from China who joined FAO in 2018 to coordinate the activities of the International Network of Black Soil for the Global Soil Partnership Secretariat. Before joining FAO, he worked at the Institute of Soil Fertilizer and Environmental Resources of the Heilongjiang Academy of Agricultural Science in Northeast China for 9 years. His research focus is on the environmental effects of crop conversion in the black soil region. He holds a PhD in plant nutrition from China. Yuzin, please, you have the floor for 30 minutes. Thereafter, we'll now take questions for another 10 minutes. So please take the floor. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Professor Raji. I'm Yuxin. I'm so happy today to be here to presenting the International Code of Conduct for Fertilizer Use and the Management of Fertilizers. Can you see my screen now?
Not yet.
Not yet.
Are people seeing the screen? If you are?
Not yet.
We are not seeing
it.
Can you open my screen? I cannot.
Yeah, share screen.
Isa?
Not yet. Oh.
It's still not yet.
Isa, can you share my screen?
No.
Lisa is online.
Yeah. And
You help using.
I cannot share my screen. Can you see my screen?
I think you can share your screen.
Just go to share. We have not seen it. It's still not on.
I cannot share my video now. It's the hoster.
I've put you as a co-host, but you should have. Okay, great.
Yes.
Okay,
thank you.
It's coming now.
Yes.
That's it.
Let's see. Hello, everybody. Good afternoon. Can you see my screen now?
We can.
Okay, thank you. So the topic of my presentation today is towards the implementation of the fertilizer code at global level and also in the national level. I'm Yixin Tong, now working in Global Soil Partnership Secretary. As Carolina mentioned, soil is the key part of the food production in our world and produce 95% of food from soils. And so it's crucial that the soil can have sufficient nutrition that provide to the plant growing, and therefore we can get enough food from soils to ensure our food security globally. And also this post is launched in 2015 in the World Soil Year. And the sufficient nutrition, including micro and macronutrients, can produce nutrient food. Therefore, after people eat food, we can have a healthy life of a human being. So there is a crucial link, a key link between the soil nutrition to the human healthy and human well-being. For food production, as we know that there is a direct link between the soils and the food productions. We have crop yield, then we can have food availability at global level and also at national level. Micro and macronutrients can provide the nutritious food to human being, and the crop free of contaminants can make food safety that for people to consume. And also the sustainable management of soils can also can have an impact on the environment footprint. For example, if we management soil properly, it can reduce the greenhouse gas emission from soils and therefore lower the environment footprint. A good soil biodiversity and crop diversity can also have a benefit on the global biodiversity. Healthy soils are resilient, then we can adaptation to the climate change. As Carolina also mentioned, in 2015, the Global Soil Partnership launched a landmark publication called Study of World Soil Resources. And the GSP and along with the member country evaluate the soil threats to the soil functions. As you can see, nutrition imbalance is the number 3 threat globally. So we should really pay attention to the nutrition imbalance in our world in order to ensure the food security, basically, and also the mitigating climate change. After the study of world soil resources, GSP also launched another key publication called Volunteer Guidelines for Sustainable Soil Management. But this publication targeting the whole soil threats and now specifically to each topic. Therefore, we figure out we need to have a specific like publication targeting the soil nutrition imbalance. Therefore, we developed the International Code of Conduct for the Sustainable Use and Management of the Fertilizers. This publication is basically targeting to fertilizer use and sustainable management of soil fertility. So, what is the objective of the fertilizer code? Firstly, the fertilizer code is aiming to promote the responsible and judicious use of fertilizers to prevent misuse, underuse, and overuse. So these three keywords you will see very often in the code and in our implementation plan. And another objective of the code is to assist member countries design policies and regulatory frameworks for the sustainable use of fertilizers. That's our two key objectives of this fertilizer code. In our world, the fertilizers is very key element in the agriculture system. And why this code? Globally, the fertilizer is often used in the farmland to ensure food production. And also, we are thank you for the fertilizer that can produce our world. We can produce more grain in the farmland. But at the same time, however, the input of fertilizers can also lead to greenhouse gas emissions, nutrient excesses, heavy metals, and other contaminants. Those negative impact from fertilizer use, we need to pay more attention. And the code also targeting those problems, how to solve those problems. In the fertilizer code also include the fertilizer underuse and overuse. Another thing is the misuse of fertilizers. The first two is about the quantity, and the second one is about the how to use fertilizer properly when it have enough quantity or proper quantity. So these three words is very important when we are talking about the code. And globally, there are very different for fertilizer inputs now. For example, in Asia, there are a lot of overuse, and in Africa, maybe there are some underuse is often be the issue. We have additional feedback from stakeholders, and always there are some problem about the below issues. For example, some fertilizer is very expensive, and for the stakeholders, farmers cannot easy to access fertilizers. Another issue is the poor quality of fertilizers and not labeled properly. In the market, sometimes the labeling is bad and farmers cannot easy to know the quantity and the quality of fertilizers in the market, and it can lead the issue, for example, how to calculate the fertilizer input rate. Another issue is stakeholders and farmers are lack of good management practices, and that there is the need for sustainable soil and nutrition management in the field. Another issue is about fertilizer supply chain. In some country, this is the problem. There is no good and healthy fertilizer supply chain, and this issue we need to solve to ensure farmer can get enough and good quality fertilizers and to know how to manage fertilizer, how to input fertilizers. In this code, we have some responsibilities and actions, including the stakeholders, including governments, fertilizer and the nutrient recycling industry, agriculture extension and advisory services, research and academia, farmers and other end users. Those stakeholders should be included in the implementation of the fertilizer code. have responsibility for build a good fertilizer supply chain and to teaching farmers and also to how to use the fertilizers. For production, trade, and policy regulation and use of, as mentioned in the code, when we are talking about fertilizers for implementation of the fertilizer code, it's not only synthetic and manual fertilizers. The fertilizers also include organic fertilizers, reused and recycled nutrients. All of those nutrients should be fertilizers when we are talking fertilizer in the fertilizer code. And this year, we also developed an implementation plan and endorsed in the GSP Plenary Assembly in June. We have 4 main activities to implementing for the code. The first one is disseminate the fertilizer code at the global level and raise awareness on the issues and principles mentioned in the code. So we should let the global stakeholders and all of them know that we have fertilizer code and we intend to helping all stakeholders to sustainable use and management of fertilizers. That's the first activity. And the second activity is important that we are going to develop capacity development for the implementation of the sustainable management of fertilizers. I will present more detail in next slides for this activity. Number 3 is the holistic approach to sustainable soil management and nutrition management, focused on ecosystem services as per the sustainable soil management definition. In this activity, we are going to develop more holistic management practices for using nature-based agri-ecosystem approach. And the last activity is targeting the policy, strengthening of policy environment through regular frameworks. This is also key objective of the code for helping the national government and to develop their policy regulations for sustainable use and management of fertilizers. So we are going to have a implementation plan and basically tackling at national level. And the first activities for national level fertilizer code implementation plan is assessment, because it's very different among countries, among member countries. Some countries, they have very good assessment, a very good database, but still there are some countries need more help, more support for assessment. We need to know the status of soil fertility, then we can going forward to develop policy, management practice, etc. So first activity is assessment. The second activity is national training on sustainable use and management of fertilizer, extension services, government staff. So those people are very key elements for the extension services, and from Global Soil Partnership, we would like to organizing trainings to share knowledge, to share the policy recommendations, especially from other countries, the experience from other countries. Third, the activity is the implementation of the Global Soil Doctor Program, a farmer-to-farm training program. This is, as I said, it is a farmer-to-farmer training program, and our colleagues, Didem Bas, will have a specific presentation later. You can know more from her presentation. Number 4 activities offer training and tailor to the retailer and the agro dealers on sustainable use and the management of fertilizers. In realistic, many basically activities for fertilizer selling and fertilizer use in the ground, on the ground is by the company, fertilizer company. So it is necessary for us to also involving them in the implementation of fertilizer code, to training them to to use fertilizer properly, to sell fertilizer properly is also very important. And also we have activity about the harmonization of methods and the data on soil fertility. Under the framework of Global Soil Partnership, we have a network specially focused on the laboratory and called GLOSOLAN. And we have activity about the fertilizer quality assessment. I will show it later. Next activity is about balance and precision fertilization recommendations and strengthen the use country condition and data. So this is about the balance and fertilization we are going to promote at the country level. Next one is the plot size can be implemented to test implementation of the fertilizer code principles. Later, we would like to build a plot size at regional level globally to test the result of implementation of the code. The last one is review and develop of national policies for best fertilizer use and management practices. This could include recommendations on fertilizer subsidy, schemes, efficiency, and cost optimization in supply chain. Those are globally agenda. Now, when we are targeting to Africa, we can see the data from the FAO statistical division. Globally, when we are talking about the fertilizer use, fertilizer input, we should know the per hectare. That more makes sense from my side. So we can compare different regions of global fertilizer input. As you can see, in some regions, for example, Eastern Asia, the fertilizer is overused, basically and very obviously. For example, East Asian have more than 300 kilogram NPK input per hectare, but still there are a lot of regions facing the fertilizer underuse. For example, in Africa, a lot of regions have lower than 50 kilogram NPK input per hectare. So to see under a global view, it's imbalance in the fertilizer use, and targeting different regions, we should have different policy, different implementation plan to solve the different problems and issues. From our publications, studies of fertilizer soil resources in sub-Saharan Africa, you can see a nutrition imbalance is hello? Okay. For the sub-Saharan Africa, can I continue? Okay. For the sub-Saharan Africa, the nutrition imbalance is the #3 issue and still becoming more and more a negative effect here. So we should pay more attention here on the soil nutrition. As Carolina mentioned also, we developed the Global Soil Doctor Program, and there are many training material online, and you can download them. And there are many of them are basically targeting fertilizers. You can using them to training farmers, and you can download in this website. After the implementation plan, we have basically actions now in Africa. Have some projects, for example, the nutrition-based agriculture projects. As Carolina mentioned, that is in the sub-Saharan Africa, in Burkina Faso and Malawi. We have another project from South Cooperation Assistance Fund in Uganda, Rwanda. And in this project, we provide the equipment of efficient laboratory for soil testing. And we will collect soil and fertilizer data to build a database. And we have field experiments and the demonstration for fertilizer use. We also will develop online training clauses under the frame of EduSource of Global Soil Partnership and organizing training and meetings for implementation of the fertilizer code in this project. We have another network, as I mentioned, called International Network on Fertilizer Quality Assessment, which is under the framework of Global Soil Laboratory Network. And we are going to launch the network in December. And you can input the questionnaire in this website, and you can attend this launching event also. And this network is specifically targeting the fertilizer quality assessment and harmonize the methodology for fertilizer quality assessment globally. Okay, sorry. I think I put a wrong. Okay, no. Thank you very much. That's all my presentation. And I'm here for presenting the fertilizer code. I'm also here want to learn from you because you are experts and soil scientists in the field. You have a lot of experience, especially for Nigeria soil nutrition management in the field. So I'm here for answer your questions. Thank you very much. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Eugene. Thank you very much. We'll have 5 to 10 minutes to ask questions. So please, we will take all the questions, then he will answer them together.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. So, Adeshina, ask your question. Adeshina Wahab, unmute yourself. Unmute yourself and talk. Okay, he's not ready. Azubike Odunze.
Hello, Mr. President, can you hear me now?
Go ahead.
Thank you. My question actually was for the last one speaker. Well, I was wanting to find out how, in practical terms, you can fix the contours on the field to check the slopes for conservation purposes. That was not explained. And it will be necessary to know how this can be done in simple practices. Thank you.
Is it for this current discussion or for?
It's not this, is the former.
No. We are only asking questions for this current one.
Yes, okay, thank you.
Okay. Adeshina, can you unmute yourself and ask question?
Hello, good afternoon, everybody.
Good afternoon.
Yes, sir. Particularly, I'm wondering when you are talking about the fertilizer distribution challenges that we have in some part of the world. Peculiar to Nigeria is the middleman issue and the fact that the subsidiary concept of the government. I don't know whether your study has covered that area to see whether this is really a challenge as to whether break the middleman effort, or challenges, or particularly the subsidiary concept of the government. Is it going to be of a long-time sustainable concept?
Thank you. Akudo, please unmute yourself. Akudo, unmute yourself and talk. Unwaka should be getting ready. Akudo, unmute yourself. Unwaka. Unwaka, please.
Hello.
Hello. Go ahead, Unwaka.
Hello. Yes. Are you hearing me?
Yes, we are hearing you.
Okay, please. I didn't hear the relationship between fertilizer application and variations in soils, because this is a serious shortcoming in application of fertilizers in the tropics, especially in Nigeria here.
Okay, thank you. I go back to...
Hello? Can I answer the question one by one?
Go ahead, Eugene. Go ahead.
Okay, for fertilizer use and soil fertility, the link, generally, when we input the fertilizers, the purpose is to increase soil nutrition. And but soil fertility not only for the soil nutrition, soil fertility including other aspects. For example, the soil physical condition and the soil biodiversity, condition, all those elements together represent soil fertility. But generally, they are going to the farmland. Soil nutrition is man for soil fertility, and therefore in the farmland, the farmers always input soil fertility. And I would mention again, in here we are talking about the fertilizers input to improve soil fertility. We are not only talking about the chemical fertilizers, also including the organic fertilizers and the recycling nutrition also. Thank you.
Thank you. Professor Asadu, please unmute yourself.
Yeah, thank you very much, and I thank the presenter. And when we talk about this global partnership, as far as fertilizer is concerned, there are so many factors that affect the use of fertilizer, apart from even the soil variability, climatic, and so on. How can this be coordinated to have to be synthesized into a code or into codes that can help in a global partnership as far as fertilizer use is concerned?
Thank you.
So, sorry, so you mean how to put...
You know, there are so many variables that one has to consider. Type of soil, rate of application, time of application, method of application, fertilizer type, and so on. So when you are talking about the code, code, or you are talking about synthesizing possibility of partnership, are we looking at all this data that will help us get a uniform implementation, like you said, at the global level?
Yeah, in the global level, we now have the International Code of Fertilizers. It's a principle for guiding stakeholders how to use sustainable use and management of fertilizer. It's global level, but when we are talking about country and the regional, it's different. As I mentioned in the presentation, different country, different region, they have different problem for the fertilizer use and the soil fertility. Therefore, we have a regional soil partnership, and we are going to develop a regional implementation plan for the fertilizer code. In the regional plan, we have basically targeting to the issue on fertilizer use and management in each region. And for the country, of course, we have some country capacity development program. We can cooperation with member country also to implement the code of fertilizers. For example, they have different fertilizer soil types, fertilizer use rate, and organic fertilizer also different between countries. So this most basically to the country level. So we have international level is like a principle from the code of fertilizer, and we will developing the regional plan. And if country have engaged with us to basically develop their national policy, their national management practice, we can also support the country to implement the code in the country level. I hope I answered your question. Thank you.
Thank you. Akudo, I'm asking you for the last time. Please go ahead. Okay, James Adediran. Please go ahead.
Thank you, my president. Thank you, the presenter. I want to ask whether you have anything put in place to build the capacity of our researchers, most especially through trainings, as regard the international code. That's number one. Number two, we all know that organic fertilizer is very important for use in crop production. And we all promote either the use of organic fertilizer alone or the use of the complementary use of organic fertilizer with inorganic fertilizer. Is there any special code or the code for organic farming? Is it different from that of mineral fertilizer use? Thank you very much.
Thank you for your question. For the first question for training the researchers, now in the Global Soil Partnership, we are developing the ideal soil platform, especially for training people online. This is the online training. We are developing this platform, and in this platform we have courses such as the sustainable soil management, soil mapping, and in the future we would like to input the soil fertility courses later. And for the physical training, we are not planning the training, but we also need to have specific cooperation. For example, when we have projects, we go into the field to have training in the national level and even in the regional level and the global level. We are organizing those training, targeting the implementation of the fertilizer code. For the second question, yes, organic fertilizer in the cropping system is important, and we are promoting the organic fertilizer use inside the fertilizer code. But I mentioned it's basically depending on the situation of countries. We cannot use one approach in all countries. For some countries, they are lack of organic material, and for other countries, they have those resources. So it's basically depending on country, on the situation of country, and we are going to support the country to develop their approach based on their situation and to promote organic fertilizer use with this basically their situation, which kind of resources they have of organic fertilizers, and which kind of farmer side, like big farmer or smallholder farmer. All those elements can influence the organic farming. But organic farming is another style, but we are promoting the fertilizer use and including organic farmer. But for the organic farming is another thing. It's we should support organic farming, but we also need to ensure the sufficient nutrition in the soil for ensure food security. So from my point of view, we need to know the situation and maximum to use organic farming, but at the same time to ensure the food production in the country level. Thank you.
Thank you. The last one, Umar Isa, or mute yourself and talk. Umar Isa. Ajiboye.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
I want to ask whether they have some of their production manual that we can actually access as a tool for our own development.
Thank you.
You mean the tool for develop some fertility? Hello?
Okay, you want him to... Okay. Ajiboye is asking...
Yes. I'm asking for soil fertility tools, manual, the kind of manual maybe they have produced that we can actually use as a guideline.
For the tools, now we have the soil doctor program, and we developed a material code and also some soil tax tool in the field, and it's easy to using in the field to test some fertilizer elements, for example, so nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, by using easy methodologies. And the name, my colleague, the name will present basically the tool under the doctor program, and that can be used in the field.
How can we access them?
You mean how can you access these tools?
Yes.
I think under those, I think you can apply it from soil doctor program, but I think the name can give you more detailed information about how to apply those tools.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Eugene. We are very grateful for your presentation and responses to questions. We still have 2 papers to go, 2 presentations, so we'll go to the next one.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much. You can also interact with our participants using the question and answer chat. There's a chat going on. Eugene, you can do that, please.
Okay, I get it. Thank you.
Thank you. The next presentation is going to be by Rosa Cuevas, the recarbonization of soils. Rosa is a soil scientist and international consultant on soil laboratories with extensive experience on soil organic carbon. She joined the Global Soil Partnership Secretariat in 2018 and coordinates projects related to carbon sequestration potential, soil organic carbon monitoring system, and management. She serves as regional facilitator for the Latin American and the Caribbean Soil Partnership and the Latin American Soil Laboratory Network. Before joining FAO, she has worked for UNDP, CONAFOR, and she is currently the coordinator for CONACYT National Network of Laboratories. She holds a master's degree in soil science from UNAM Institute of Ecology. Rosa will share with us on the topic of recarbonization of soils. Rosa, you have 30 minutes, and thereafter we'll take 10 minutes of question and answer. So please, you can go ahead.
Thank you very much, Professor. Could you hear me?
Yes, very loud and clear.
Okay, I will share now the screen. First, give me 1 second, please.
Yes, we have your screen now.
Now you can see?
Yes, we can see.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Professor. And thank you for the opportunity for presenting in this training and series of presentations. As you mentioned, my name is Rosa Cuevas. I work for the Global Soil Partnership, and I will present to you our recent initiative, RegSoil, Recarbonization of Global Soils. Okay, recently, the status of the World Soil Resources Report reflected the importance of soils, right, as a valuable natural capital on which we depend, not only humans, but also any life form on Earth. According to this report, 33% of our soils, unfortunately, are degraded due to 10 major threats. Affecting its functioning and jeopardizing the provision of essential ecosystem services and functions, as for example, soil aggregation, immobilization of contaminants, water retention, the nutrient provision for plant growth, and of course, carbon sequestration in stable forms. Also, exacerbating the effect of global warming due to land use change, and causing the emission of billions tons of CO2 into the atmosphere, land degradation, desertification and drought due to land use change, poor management, fertilizers misuse and erosion, also soil compaction, and biodiversity loss due to the same land use change, but also monocultures, the excessive use of agrochemical inputs, etc. Even though that all functions and ecosystem services rely on soil organic carbon content, there was no global efforts to put soil and its carbon as a key piece to fight against climate change, degradation, biodiversity loss, and also food insecurity. And as an important achievement, the UN Statistics Division defined the below and above ground carbon as a universal indicator to measure land degradation. I mean, with this, the SDG indicator 15.3.1. Since the launch of the Global Soil Partnership in 2012, to the publication of the IPCC special report on climate change and land, the importance of maintain and or increase soil stocks as a cost-effective option to combat, as I mentioned, climate change, degradation, biodiversity loss, and food insecurity has become clear. On the other hand, for several decades, an extensive body of soil scientists agreed that the main mechanism to improve soil health is to increase soil organic matter content and, of course, carbon. And it is also well known that a healthy soil is more resilient to climatic adversities and more productive. And not to mention all the multiple benefits associated within that you can see here on my screen. Therefore, it is worth mentioning how can we create an enable environment for scaling up SSM practices, I mean sustainable soil management practices, based on SOC or soil organic carbon sequestration. Okay, first, the problem. We must consider a series of barriers, right, that we must break in order to scaling up scaling up these SSM practices. For example, as you can see, but it's one of most important, is to recognize farmers as the main vehicle or change capable to implement such practices, contribute to reduce uncertainty regarding SOC data, and additionality through the implementation of an MRV protocol at farm scale. MRV, I mean monitoring, reporting, and verification processes, and also provide not only financial, but also technical support to farmers. The main recommendations from the GSOC 17, I mean the Global Symposium on Soil Organic Carbon in 2017, were to prevent, as you can see, further SOC losses, and where feasible, providing incentives to increase those stocks, right? In this context, the REC-Soil program emerged as a comprehensive response to contribute to the three conventions that I mentioned, to food security, to farm income, and also to offset emissions. As you can see here, we can present the different steps of the REC-Soil initiative or program. The REC-Soil program consists, as I mentioned, first of recognizing farmers as the main vehicle of change and capable of implementing such or good practices. The committed farmers will benefit from financial incentives and technical support to implement such practices. The eligible lands will be monitored by standard procedures to ensure carbon permanence and additionality through the MRV protocol at farm scale. On the other hand, that's important, the multiple benefits of carbon sequestration will be measured through the VGSSM and SSM protocol that my colleague Caroline explained in detail, where, for example, productivity, biological activity, water availability, among others, will be determined or measured. And also a certificate of compliance will be given, or a label will be given under the VGSSM context in order to prove the multiple benefits associated or obtained. And finally, if it's the case, private investors will be able to purchase carbon credits generate under the voluntary markets. It's important to mention that this market scheme it's currently under development. We are working hard on that, and we hope we can launch as soon as possible. And going step by step, based on the last slide that I presented, the GSOC map as step one. As you can see here, we must first look at the current reserves or stock that we have already, and distinguish between natural and managed ecosystems. No? In this case, the dark areas are normally natural systems with high SOC contents, or in other cases, managed areas like the black soils. The second step will be in order to better target our actions, it is necessary first to know the potential, right, of carbon sequestration. And for that, we are developing global soil organic carbon sequestration potential map with a bottom-up approach in order to define key sites and go into detail. We will define if there is potential or not. And it's important to mention that we implement the first training for Latin America for that purpose last week, and we will finish during this year and during the beginning of next year with all of this training in order to have a specific national maps for carbon sequestration potential and construct from that a global one. The mapping specific issues, I think my colleague Yusuf explained already. RegSoil will be implemented through a letter of agreement between farmers or farmers associations. The condition, of course, willingness to adopt practices, obviously good practices or SSM practices, and the benefits will be technical support, of course, and financial incentives. Once the agreement is made, the farmers will be able to have access to the RegSoil kit. As you can see, we have different tools. Starting with the global maps, the GSOC map and the GSOC SEC map that I mentioned, that it's under development. The idea is to, once we have both maps, we will feed the global SOC monitoring system, the global soil organic carbon monitoring systems, in the framework of the Global Soil Information System, or GLOSSIS. Also, we have a technical, we are developing a technical manual with the best practices for soil organic carbon sequestration in all landscapes that we will launch this year or maximum at the beginning of next year. Also, we launched already our GSOC MRV protocol last September. The added value of this protocol, because we know that there's lots of protocols around us, but the added value of this protocol is that was endorsed by member countries, and also that it's focused on soil carbon, and regarding also measurement, we can say that we have SOPs, standard operating procedures, for measuring soil organic carbon in the laboratories per se, not only carbon, but also not only organic, but also inorganic carbon, and considering also different methods, for example, as wall clay in black and dry combustion. These SOPs are harmonized at a global level, considering all countries from all regions in the framework of the Global Soil Laboratory Network. And finally, these protocols that my colleague Caroline already mentioned, the VGSSM and the SSM protocol. Our next step is regarding the implementation of good practices per se. I can, or you can see on the screen our main protocols for that. As a base, the VGSSM, then the specific protocol for soil organic carbon management. And also we can include the Soil Doctors program that my colleague Zineb will present after. And according to edapoclimatic conditions and the local context, of course, farmers will select the best practices for it, and we will give technical support for that, for the implementation of the good practices. And obviously financial incentives in 3 payments: on the establishment, in the year 4, and by the end of the cycle project in the year 8. And in all of this, or during this life cycle of the project, of course, continuous support and monitoring. I want to talk a little bit about this technical manual, because will be a very useful tool for the implementation of such a good practices. It's a peer review meta-analysis of the main hotspots of SOC, SSM practices for carbon sequestration and farming approaches. And why hotspots? Because it's important to have the updated information regarding the soils with the most or the highest stocks, no? For example, peatlands, permafrosts, black soils, etc., and how to approach the management and conservation of them, but also practices and approaches, those related with the SSM practices per se. And for example, in this space, we will give information about the description of the practices, the geographical application, the potential of sequestration, I mean quantitative data associated within, the provision services related with carbon sequestration, also socioeconomic benefits, etc. As I mentioned, will be in all landscapes, also considering urban areas. And it's important to mention that more than 300 people are involved in this huge and important exercise. This is only an example of the case studies for Africa and Near East and North Africa. And that's it. We can see, for example, in Congo, the different practices applied and the duration, also in South Africa, also for Mozambique, etc. Regarding measuring, monitoring, reporting, and verification, or steps 6, we will have using obviously this very important and useful tool, I mean GSOC MRV protocol. We will have 3 specific measurements, or 3 main measurements. The first one with the baseline before the good practices are implemented. The second measurement after 4 years of implementation of these good practices. And also we can measure the ecosystem services associated with carbon sequestration. And the final measurement at the 8th year of the implementation of these practices. If we want to do intermediate measurements, it's also possible. I will give you details. Okay. I only want to show you this. I will not enter into detail, but basically is the summary of the GSOC MRV protocol with 6 main steps, considering the 3 main steps with the pre-SSM implementation, including the applicability of the project, considering the eligible lands, also the project boundaries, and defining the baseline. For the next 3 steps, 4, 5, and 6, we can relate it with the SSM implementation per se, starting with the additionality assessment. That is a preliminary assessment of the additionality of the project. We can say, or that is how much carbon would be sequestered and how much greenhouse gas emissions will be reduced, compared to a situation in which the SSM practices would not have exist, and we will do through modeling. There's very detailed information regarding that through all the protocol, and then start measuring, defining the baseline and measuring in year 4 and 8, as I mentioned. And also there's an option for measuring in year 2 and 6 with a specific fraction of labile fraction of soil organic carbon, that is particulate organic matter or carbon, if we want to see changes in short time periods. And finally, the part of reporting on the step 6, considering different reports per year, no? And also, if we want to measure the multiple benefits associated with carbon sequestration, we have this important tool, the SSM protocol, with specific indicators as soil productivity, soil organic, soil physical properties, and biological activity. But I believe that my colleague Caroline addressed this. And finally, when coming to the market place, Rexsoil has 2 paths, the green path and the carbon market path. I will explain with this diagram. I think it's better. For the carbon, for the green path, this is focused and in compliance with the VGSSM in order to, and it's linked with a label, as I mentioned, where the increase or with this specific label, farmers will be able to also increase their prices and appreciation of the products. And also we will put attention to the provision of the ecosystem services, the soil sequestration, avoiding CO2 and NO2 emissions, and enhance resilience of soils, and will be measured through the SSM protocol in a compulsory way. And also if we want to measure, for example, carbon sequestration, a complementary way, it's related with the application or implementation of the GSOC MRV protocol in a not compulsory way. The other path, the carbon market path on the other side, will focus, of course, on carbon sequestration and carbon credits. And the measurements per se will be applied through the, of course, GSOC MRV protocol in, if I can say, obligatory or compulsory way. And if we want to measure the multiple benefits associated with carbon sequestration, we can use or apply the SSM protocol in a voluntary way. And finally, we can say that we are implementation RegSoil program in different pilot countries. We start with Costa Rica, and we signed a letter of agreement in order to define specific topics as how to incorporate RegSoil into the payment of ecosystem services or related with the institutional framework of Costa Rica. Also define the cost of implementations of SSM protocols at farm scale. And also all of this considering two main activities, coffee and pastures. And finally, Costa Rica, it's working on the delivering of the GSOC map or GSOC map of Costa Rica. I mean with this, the carbon sequestration potential national map. And with that, Costa Rica will be able to implement this RegSoil program in coordination with the FAO, and they are advanced on these processes. Also, they define costs for ton per hectare, and also define the specific practices adapted for their context. And we believe that with this, we can start implementing this initiative in other countries, as Mexico, for example. They will strengthen the national soil information system based on or with focus, an important focus on carbon, and also to implement the RegSoil initiative in next year. Thank you very much for your attention and for your time.
Thank you very much, Rosa, for your presentation. I will wait for 5 questions, then you can take the response. So please, Judobi, you can mute yourself and talk. Judobi, unmute yourself and talk. Jude Obi, unmute yourself. Okay. Okay, go ahead. Jude Obi, go ahead.
It is an error. I never raised my hand.
Okay. Infinis. 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 Okay, Monday. Monday, please. Unmute yourself and talk.
Can anybody hear me? I'm talking.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, please, for the presenter, I'm looking at the protocol presented to be something similar to the United Nations Framework for Climate Change, Kyoto guidelines. So I need clarification if it's the same thing or it's an addition to an existing protocol of the United Nations Framework on Climate Change. Thank you.
Ebuka, Chukwu Ebuka.
Good day, sir.
Good day.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, go ahead.
Thank you, Ms. Rosa, for your wonderful presentation. I want to start by saying that it's a very nice presentation. I want to key into this. My question is, during your presentation, there's a problem, and that problem was not quite addressed. I'm not satisfied because from the problem you raised, you said that organic carbon is not easy to measure, and there are a lot of uncertainties. And my question is there anything your organization or group is doing to harmonize this measurement so that we'll have one standard measurement that is very easy, that everybody can employ, so that we'll be able to get accurate information about soil organic carbon sequestration in our soils? Now, from the map you presented to us, I don't know how that data was standardized or where those data was obtained to be able to get that matter, because if the uncertainty in measurement is still there, that means the map you presented to us may not telling us the truth. Is there anything your organization is doing to harmonize this measurement method?
Thank you. Thank you. It has gotten your question. Okay. Yeah. Rosa, please answer those two questions, then we'll take the next two.
Could you hear me?
Yes. Rosa,
thank you
please.
very much. Yes. Yeah, first of all, the SOC MRV protocol, as I mentioned, it's unique and the first protocol regarding specific for soil organic carbon and related, of course, with other greenhouse gas emissions. And as I also mentioned, the added value is that we can apply on the farm scale, and we can support decision making and farmers in that sense. Regarding the uncertainty, as you mentioned, associated with SOC data per se, in one of my slides, I mentioned that we are developing two important tools, right? The first one is regarding mapping per se, and the other one is regarding measuring. For mapping, we can say that the GSOC map first, that the map, the global map that we can define as stocks. It's a living product, and we are improving all data related with that. My colleague, maybe Yusuf, can address better all the specific details, but I can tell you that the idea of developing these maps, I mean GSOC map and GSOC SEC map, is to have specific protocols and technical specifications in order to harmonize and standardize how to get specific or final data, right? And also if we want to compare one data with other country, will be possible if we have technical specifications for that in a harmonized way. And also for both maps, the uncertainty assessment is considered, and that's a specific section for example, the technical specifications for the new map that it's under development regarding sequestration. And finally, with or regarding measurements per se in laboratory, as I mentioned, we developed these standard operating procedures or SOPs for not only for carbon, but but for other elements as nitrogen, phosphorus, etc. And the idea of this is also to reduce the uncertainty regarding the data generate by labs, because, for example, one important activity in under the Glossoland and all the RESOLANs, the regional soil laboratory networks, is to organize exercise, proficiency testing exercise in order to increase the performance of each laboratory in how to measure the different parameters, no? And we will not omit, of course, carbon. And we have already, for finalizing these SOPs that are harmonized at a global level, and also this annual exercise that we can improve the performance of each procedure and laboratory. And yeah, I think that's it.
Thank you. Yusuf, Ado, unmute yourself and talk.
Yeah, thank you, sir. Yeah, I want to commend the presenter and the efforts being made in Costa Rica. In fact, maybe this one is a comment for NIS. I think there are a number of things to learn from what is happening there in terms of incentivizing the farmers to contribute to carbon credit. I think that's a good thing. Not only carbon credits, I think we have to look into how we can expand the incentivization. I know the government is doing well in terms of the fertilizer subsidy through the Presidential Fertilizer Initiative, but there should be more to that. Then secondly, I would have asked, or let me ask, I realized that in Costa Rica, the farmers or the enterprise focused on is the coffee and the pasture. But in Nigeria, most of our lands are not under permanent cropping. Let me say, mostly we have annual crops. So to the presenter, do you have a model that you can share with us so that we can engage our farmers who are mostly going into annual cropping? Because yeah, if you are really talking of carbon sequestration or carbon credit, the perennial system is the best, but we find ourselves here where most of the farmers go for annual cropping. Then the last one has to do with the size of the farm. Yes, if you are talking about tens of hectares, I think that will be very easy to have farmers to give them some incentives. But here in Nigeria, the average holding is around two hectares. Yeah, 2 hectares most of the time, maybe maximum 5 hectares. So how do you transfer the model in Costa Rica to the peculiar situation we have in Nigeria? Thank you.
Rosa, take the last question, then you can answer them together. Ajiboye, please go ahead. Ajiboye. Ajiboye.
Yes. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes. My question is on the way we can actually achieve an increase in this soil carbon, because most of the things we still practice around negates carbon sequestration. For instance, we have a lot of these local farmers that are still interested in over-tillage, burning of bushes, and all these things. Now, and the thing we are discussing now does not really get down to the farming communities. So what can we do as a society now, not directly to the power and to the presenter now. What can we do as a society to improve the level of awareness of our farmers now?
Thank you. Rosa, hold on a minute. Let me ask this Infinix man to talk. Infinix S, I don't know who is that. Unmute yourself.
Hello?
You first of all introduce yourself.
I'm Adeboye, MK Adeboye from Futmina.
Okay.
Yes, I've been raising my hand since.
Because we don't know the name, it's Infinix that is there.
Oh, okay, okay. Sorry about that. My comment is about the particulate organic matter. We have the soil, labile soil organic matter. That is the organic matter that is available for the microorganisms to be able to access, including the water-soluble organic carbon. And this labile soil organic matter, they're only used to be able to look at short-term changes in soil organic carbon, organic matter. But I can see there in one of the graphs presented that the particulate organic matter will also be determined. I think this, if we're thinking of carbon sequestration over a long-term basis, you cannot determine the particulate organic matter because it's for short-term changes in the soil organic matter or the soil organic carbon. So I don't know how they now bring in the particulate organic matter, which is a labile soil organic matter that is consumed by the soil microorganisms as a source of carbon. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Rosa, you can now take the question. These are the last set. Then please respond to them as much as you can.
I couldn't understand. It's my time now?
Yes, it's your time.
Okay, thank you. I hope I can address everything because it's quite a lot of questions.
Take the ones.
Okay, I will try to put everything together. I hope I will that, okay?
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks to you. Okay, yeah, regarding, okay, we can talk about the MRV protocol and how we can apply to different scenarios or situations. The main important thing that we need to take into account or into consideration is that this protocol will allow us to measure changes in SOx stocks, right? Under the time. In this case, we suggest a cycle of a minimum cycle project of 8 years, because it's the time that maybe we can see changes on the stocks once we apply or change our practices. In this case, SSM practices. We can apply in 1 hectare or in 100 hectares, because it's considered that we can also there's no like a specific area per se, but we can say that we will focus on farm scales, right? And also, as I mentioned previously, we can do through farmers associations that implies huge scales or subsistence farmers. And also this protocol is designed, or we can say that that it doesn't matter if it's an annual or perennial crop. Also, we can consider paddy rice or grazing lands with livestock, including pastures, grasslands, rangelands, etc. We can apply in a very wide range, and also it's for investors, research institutions, on governments, NGOs, and as I mentioned, individual farmers that wants to be involved and consider this supply chain. What else?
Okay, we can continue using the question and answer platform to answer some of these questions. Rosa.
Yeah. For example, I'm seeing that I wrote already. Answering, of course, I mean, it doesn't matter if you have different land use systems, because we, with this protocol, we can like consider everything. Regarding the labile fraction, as another colleague mentioned, yes, of course, it's a fraction related with available carbon. And we mentioned that we can measure short-term changes using this fraction, but it's not part per se of the, if I can say, compulsory steps. In our steps 0, 1, and 3, in the year 0, 4, and 8, we will measure soil organic carbon, not particulate organic carbon. This is only if you have enough resources to measure in between that year's particulate organic carbon. And also we need to take into account that if we like fractionate also this fraction, this particulate organic carbon, we can say that the most like heavy fraction, it's also start humifying. No, we can distinguish on using the microscope that some also parts start like humifying. That means that eventually part of this POM will go to the stable like form, no, or the stable fraction. And that's it from my side, I think so. Let me know if I miss something.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Please, while we're continuing with the next presentation, you can attend to some of the questions under the question and answer chat, or the chat which participants are bringing out. So we'll go to the last but not the least, the presentation on the Global Soil Doctors Program by Zainab Banza of FAO. Zainab is a soil scientist and consultant on soil management who specializes in sustainable soil management and soil fertility. She joined the Global Soil Partnership Secretariat in 2017, where she is the coordinator for the African Soil Partnership and the main facilitator for Pillar 1 activities on soil management, on sustainable soil management. She also coordinates the Global Soil Doctors Program. And most of us would like to, I think it is quite interesting, we want to know. During the past years, Zainab has worked on the effects of soil amendment on soil health, crop productivity, greenhouse gas emissions. She completed her master's in soil science, and her BSc was in applied biology at the University of British Columbia. Zainab, please You have the floor for 30 minutes. I know a lot of my colleagues are interested in this soil doctor thing, so please go ahead.
Thank you so much, Professor. Can you see my screen? Can you see the right one?
Yes. This one is promoting sustainable soil management for all.
Okay, yes, no, that's fine.
Okay.
Okay, so I think you can see the right one. Okay, perfect. Well, thank you very much, Professor Raji, and thank you to Professor Chude for giving us the opportunity to be here today and to present some of the work that we are doing. And thank you for introducing me. So today my presentation is about the Global Soil Doctors Program, and you just said that you are interested in this program. I'm very happy to hear that. And what I will be doing is giving you some information about this program. So I am not giving a lecture, and my presentation is slightly different than that of my colleagues because I am just giving you some information about an initiative that we have here at the Global Soil Partnership. It's a little less technical. And I'm hoping to hear back from you and see if there is interest at the national level in Nigeria. So the Global Soil Doctors Program is a farmer-to-farmer training initiative, and it was first created or inspired based on the Global Soil Doctors Program of Thailand. So they already have a similar initiative that was quite successful. And this program is really aimed at building the capacity of farmers on soils, so soil sciences, the discipline itself, as well as on sustainable soil management and sustainable soil management practices. And this program also aims to support governmental agencies and organizations that are working on agricultural extension in the field. And while this program was really developed for developing countries, because this is where there is a need for more trained extension services or a lack of extension services, it's still designed to be quite flexible. So the educational material that comes with the program or the principles of the program can be applied by anyone that wishes to promote the Global Soil Doctors Program. So what it is exactly, a lot of my colleagues mentioned the Global Soil Doctors Program at the end of their presentation, and this is because this program is really the implementation of the voluntary guidelines for sustainable soil management at the field level through an initiative that we're doing. So anyone can really apply or implement the principles of the voluntary guidelines for sustainable soil management. This is something that is open to all, but we wanted to also have an initiative at the partnerships level to really monitor and see how we can implement sustainable soil management at the global level, taking into consideration farmers who are really the guardians and main stakeholders who are involved with soils on a daily basis. And we also believe that this program, actually I forgot to mention, but it was just launched on October 5th, 2020. So this is a program that we have been working on for quite a while, but it was just launched and we are just about to implement. And one of the potential that we are seeing is that we want to create a self-sufficient system that will promote sustainable soil management independently of available national resources, using the tools and the educational material that we provide and that come with this program, and actually that are available for free online right now, at least the educational material. And there's also the potential to provide continuity and dissemination of all the work that we are doing on sustainable soil management after the end of projects. So again, my colleagues have discussed, for example, the implementation of the fertilizer code, etc. But if we don't involve farmers in the implementation of all the different tools and documents, whether they are normative or technical, that we produce at the Global Soil Partnership, then once a project ends or once we leave, there's no real continuity if the farmers are not convinced by what we are producing and what we are telling them, and if they don't want to implement it at the field level, if they don't see benefits, and if they don't want to keep doing what we are promoting. So how does this program really work? So the execution of this program really builds on the identification of champion farmers. And these champion farmers are what we refer to as soil doctors. And they are there to educate other farmers or train other farmers in their community on soil science principles and to train them on the practice of sustainable soil management. Of course, this will be different from country to country because the issues at the local or national level can be very different. So again, this concept would really create a self-sufficient system that would promote SSM or sustainable soil management independently of national subsidies or financial resources, if only using the material that we provide, as well as, of course, the human resources from the promoters that wish to implement this program in their country. So the objectives were really to not only establish this farmer-to-farmer training initiative and to support the government, but also in a way, depending on what the promoter decides to do at the national or local level, we also want to support field research based on interactions between these soil doctors and also universities, research institutes, or soil societies. So this can include, I don't know, demonstrations or experimental fields, etc. And also to really promote the concept of soil testing prior to giving any recommendation on soil management. And I will discuss a little bit the soil testing kit that we provide. So none of the presentations that were given today mentioned or really focused on laboratory soil testing or soil testing in general, except maybe for a brief mentions in my colleague's presentation, especially for the protocol on sustainable soil management and the fertilizer code. But there's also an initiative within the Global Soil Partnership that's called the Global Soil Laboratory Network. And we really promote the use of soil laboratories or soil testing in general before making any management decisions. And so within this program, within the Global Soil Doctors program, we provide these farmers with a set of tools for training the other farmers in their community. And it allows them, through these tools, to make these management decisions, because the tools consist of educational, and here I will go to the next kit. To the next slide, but it consists of a toolkit that has a soil testing kit. And in this picture, you can see what is included in the soil testing kit, at least the physical tools and equipments that we provide the promoters and the soil doctors with. So here we see that there's a plastic tarp to set up all of the material that's included in the soil testing kit, a clipboard, a trowel that has a second function, as we could not pack a soil knife, but this can serve as both. A vest to differentiate between the champion farmer or soil doctor and the other farmers within the community, a water bottle for different methods and experiments linked to soil physical properties such as soil texture, etc. Some protective gloves, a meter, a magnifying glass, and a little soil chemical testing kit that can help farmers measure their soil nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, and soil pH levels. And all of this is included in this backpack that you see in the picture. And then in addition to this, to the soil testing kit, as part of the toolkit, there's also some training material that is available right now online. So you can already go on the website of the Soil Doctors program, take a look at the material that we have. It's all free and it can be used for many different purposes. But in this toolkit, we have a binder that contains a implementation manual. So this is a manual that really explains to the promoters how they can implement the Global Soil Doctors program in their country or within their communities. Then we also have a soil testing methods manual. And this manual is very important because it's really a collection of soil testing methods that is part of this program, and that can help farmers assess the condition of their soil directly in the field. So this is really as a way to stop soil degradation and as a first step to sustainable soil management. And then there's also some posters And here we can see some of the different posters that we have within the program, and also a colleague, an ex-colleague from the Global Soil Partnership here that printed the posters and used them in her trainings. And apparently they are very useful, but they can be used either as posters, or you can take information within the posters or part of the posters, put them in a presentation. So it's really flexible how this training material is used, but we really just wanted to have all of the different topics that we address within the Global Soil Partnership and all of the different soil threats addressed in these posters. So some of the posters are first some informative posters on what is the Soil Doctors program, how to become a soil doctors, and then other more technical that are why are your crops not growing well. So this is the poster where we really get into the different soil threats that can affect soil productivity. What is soil? How to take a soil sample. So this one is another one where we really focus on the importance of testing one's soil. How to best manage your soil. What are soil physical properties? What are biological and chemical properties? And then we have more technical and more focused posters on soil compaction and how to prevent and remediate it, on soil erosion, whether it is by wind, water, and how to remediate it, what is soil organic matter, and how to enhance soil organic matter content. And then there is, and here I will go to the next slide, quite a lot of material that is specifically on soil nutrients. So here we see posters on what are soil nutrients, how to manage soil nutrients, as well as some others that are linked to nutrients. What is soil pH? What is soil acidification? And how to minimize soil acidification. And in this slide, you also see a fertilizer training aid and module that my colleague Yushin mentioned in his presentation. And in this one, it's really a little booklet with some information that can be used to train the champion farmers or the soil doctors on fertilizers, whether they are organic or inorganic. And it really talks about the different types of fertilizers, so organic fertilizers, biofertilizers, mineral or inorganic fertilizers, fertilizer specifications and legislation. It also talks about fertilizer recommendations. This is mostly for inorganic fertilizers, the different application methods for mineral fertilizers, and how to store, handle, transport fertilizers. So this is all very important information that usually can be done by extension services, but if they are lacking and a promoter wants to take over and implement this program, we provide them with quite a lot of information that they can give farmers within their communities. And then we also have posters on saline and sodic soils, on soil pollution and how to prevent it in agricultural soils, and on soil biodiversity and how to enhance soil biodiversity. And finally, as I mentioned before, the Soil Doctors program was just launched, so we do not have any extensive experience of implementing this program in the field. However, my colleague Carolina that was just talking about sustainable soil management a few minutes ago was working with farmers in Colombia through FAO in Colombia, where she was able to really test out the principles of the Soil Doctors program, as well as some of the methodologies used. So here we see one of the methods, the ribbon method for soil texture, that is included in the soil testing methods document. And she was able to test all of this in the field. So the principle and the methodology of the Soil Doctors program, but also the technical information that was contained within the program. So we are now looking forward to implementing this program at a larger scale and getting feedback from more than just a few pilots that we have done in the past. And so in terms of the way forward, this is a living program. What I presented to you now is only some of the training material that we wish to have for this Soil Doctors program. And we are really looking forward to implementing it through some pilot cases and then seeing what is working, what is not working, if we are missing something, if there are some themes, some soul threats, some topics that we have forgotten or that needs to be explored more in depth. I think once we get some feedback, especially from the farmers themselves, we will be able to see if we are in the right direction or if we need to change a few things. If the farmers and the promoters can be more independent, or if they will need the help of the Global Soil Partnership for a little longer. And then, as you can see, the material that we have right now is in English, and not all farmers or promoters will be able to use it. So we are also hoping to translate not only in the main languages, the main UN languages, but also in local languages, especially if we want to use the posters. And yes, and as I said, we are now working on the pilot cases. So this will be in the next few couple of months. And then once we get some feedback from that, we will be upscaling the program to more partners. And in terms of the Global Soil Doctors in Africa, so in those pilot projects, so after the launch of the program on October 5th, we have had many interested partners, people that have attended the webinars, people that have reached out through the regional soil partnerships that we have, that got in touch with us to become promoters of the program. So again, promoter is the person through an institution that is already working with farmers that would like to implement this program within their communities. So for now, we have quite a few from Africa that are involved. And if I remember correctly, we also have 1 or 2 that reached out from Nigeria. And within the pilot projects, we also have 2 countries in Africa, Burkina Faso and Malawi, that are involved in the Soils for Nutrition project that my colleague Yushin mentioned, that will also test out the Soil Doctors program. So we have already sent out some kits, and colleagues are following up with them directly. And more interested partners are invited to get in touch with us for the second implementation phase. So we cannot do all of them at the same time because it requires quite a bit of follow-up with the individual promoters and the sending out of the kits, ordering more kits, etc. So for this current phase that we are doing, we are not accepting any more promoters, but for the next phase, which will start, I believe, in early 2021, if you would like to be a part of it, then feel free to get in touch with us. And in this slide, I am just putting the link to the website where all of the educational material and information about the Soil Doctors can be found, and the email that you can reach out to if you are interested in this program. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much for your presentation. It's been a long day. We will take questions for another 10 minutes, then we can round up this program. Those who want to ask questions, please raise your hand, just like we have been doing. Okafor, please unmute yourself and talk.
Yeah, good afternoon, Professor Raji. Good afternoon, the presenter. Yeah, that's quite an interesting presentation there. I'm more interested in that partnering with global partner, with you, and also how can one get that that soy kit? We saw in the presentation. It's quite interesting because the truth is, partnering with our farmers out there, we really need to make it less ambiguous and something that is very pragmatic right there in the field, for them to acknowledge, our impact in food security, and also to boost the economic of their activities in their production. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Just wait for the response. Dr. Prof, please unmute yourself.
Yeah, thank you, my president. Well, I want to acknowledge. Excuse me. Can I continue?
Please continue.
Yes, I want to acknowledge the receipt of some of these soil doctors kit in my look. I mean, I can say in my zone, that's the southwestern zone, which was given to us, which were given to us by NIS. And recently we had started using it. I want to say that in 2 of the boxes or kits, it was discovered that the reagents that were used on the farm, and we discovered that it was not the reagent was not giving us the actual expectation on the field. Take, for example, the pH. When you are on acid soil, the pH showed somehow alkaline, pH 7.5, 7.2. And what we did was to bring this same soil to the laboratory. And we discovered that the pH was 5.2, 5.3, and so on. What I want to deduce from that is that is possibly, can we say that some of these reagents have expired? If not, is it possible that we could calibrate the soil kit given to us? Well, secondly, the other question is that, is there any attempt for the Global Soil Partnership to look into ways how we can also get simple tools to test our soils for soil micronutrients? Thank you very much.
Thank you. Ajiboye, please go ahead.
Thank you, sir. I want to go in line with what Prof. just asked now. Recently, I was trying to do some work on the field that requires taking of the soil data directly on the field. But we found that most of these kits who are not giving accurate results. There are some problems with the case, and I felt that the problem came actually from the manufacturers. And so, is there any standard kit that we can use to take data from the fields that will work the same way we are able to take our data from the laboratory? Because that's the problem.
Thank you. Zineb, you can take the questions, the 3.
Yes, thank you very much for these questions. They're very interesting and very much in line with the Global Soil Doctors program, and we are right now, as I said, we're also looking for feedback once we send out the kits. So for the first question, how to get the kit, I believe this is quite straightforward. The kit is sent out to promoters that wish to implement the Global Soil Doctors program at the national or at the local level. So any interested promoter can get in touch with us. We then do a screening through asking some questions about where they work, what do they do, what is their role with farmers within their community, etc., to determine if the promoter would be a good fit to implement the Soil Doctors program. And once that link is established, then we can send out a few kits depending on the number of farmers that are reached by the program. In terms of the second questions, with the kits not giving actual expectations, with some errors in the results, or some of the reagents might have expired, etc. Unfortunately, and I really try to make that very clear in each one of my presentations of the Global Soil Doctors program, is that these kits do not make the program. A lot of people get very excited when they see that this program comes with a kit, but unfortunately, the reality of all of these kits that are available in the market right now is that not all of them are accurate. They don't work for most soils. So we have done a screening, and we have talked to many manufacturers to really be able to purchase the kits that would work in most areas and that would give us the most accurate results. We have tested different kits in the laboratories here to see which one would be best. The one that we have purchased is from La Motte, so it's a quite a good manufacturer. It's known globally. But unfortunately, we cannot say that that these kits are 100% accurate or that you should make any management decisions using the results given by these kits. I still believe that sampling and sending soil samples to the laboratory should be done before taking any management decisions at the farm or at the field level. And finally, once we implement this program, get some feedback on the soil testing kit, we would also like to improve it over time, maybe work with through the Global Soil Laboratory Network that I mentioned earlier. So perhaps work with them to get reagents that are most appropriate and most used at the national level directly from them. So we pack the backpack here at FAO headquarters, send them with some bottles where reagents can be filled locally, nationally, in the laboratories, and then distributed to the promoters and to the farmers. So I hope that I answered your questions.
Thank you very much. Let me just chip in briefly that Professor Chude, the Registrar of NIST, is not here. He will have given us an update on the number of kits that were sent to Nigeria. I think these kits are being distributed all over the country. Some universities, very soon, if they've not received theirs, will get at least one or two. So please, let's be in touch with the registrar. And if there are more coming, I think that will also be distributed very soon. So let's take the last question. And Professor Jami Aziz.
Thank you, Prof. Actually, mine is not a question. It's just more of a comment. And it has to do with the use of kits as a replacement, so to say, to laboratory analysis. Just to say that majority of the use of kit is actually going to give us a mere qualitative answers to our question. If we actually want to get the actual parameters that we are interested in, which we want to make some management decisions on, it should still be laboratory analysis. The kit, you take it to the field, just give you an idea, okay, this soil is actually going to be acidic or basic. Even though I'm not actually making case for kits that have expired chemicals in them. But basically, we should have it as soil scientists. The use of kits on the field is just going to give us some qualitative data. Quantitative data from our analysis should be done in the lab, not use of soil kit. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Let me, before we bring this mandatory professional training program to an end, Professor Chude is still unable to join us, but on behalf of Professor Chude, let me thank and express our appreciation to FAO and Global Soil Partnership for agreeing to host our inaugural mandatory continuous professional education for us at no cost to the Institute. We are indeed very, very grateful. We have also, I'm one of the participants, I've also gained a lot from what has been presented today. And I know that this is just the beginning because a lot of follow-up will have to be done. And luckily, the information we have gotten from the resource persons is that you can do this follow-up through the FAO website. So please, participants, let's keep in touch. We can keep in touch directly with the FAO website or with any of these resource persons. we could also get some of these materials, as has been mentioned, from the FAO website, and they have been promised that this will also be sent to individual emails of those who registered. So on behalf of the registrar, Professor Victor, who is Victor Chude, who is unavoidably absent, we want to express our appreciation to all the resource persons for your time and resources you have shared with us today. We are indeed very, very grateful. All the participants, this is going to be a yearly event, and I think we've all taken one or two things from this training program today. Please, we can continue to interact among ourselves using our social media platform. And if there are things we also want to have as a follow-up, I think the registrar is also on all those social platforms, and he will answer some of your questions. Before we bring it to a close, I will call on the president of NIST and chairman of the NIST Council to give us his closing remarks so that we can bring this. But please, before I do that, there has been the host. Isa has been our host since morning. He has been in the background controlling and hosting this webinar. We thank him, we thank her very well for this opportunity. Please, on behalf of all of us, we thank all of you. Thank you very much. Mr. President, sir.
Thank you, Prof. I believe you have summarized everything as an experience that everybody, no one of us will say he has not gained something. And I believe that since we also have the emails of the speakers, the resource persons, some of us have individual questions for them, and we can continue the discussion even after today. We are very, very grateful to them. And we believe if next time they are still any of them is still one of the people to help us out next year, I believe they will still oblige. Thank you very much. And I want to thank members of the RSS and Soil Science Society of Nigeria. By this time, we still have 98 of us remaining. It's now 97. That is impressive, and I believe we will continue like that. Thank you very much. God bless you.
Thank you, Mr. President. Any of the resource person has any closing remarks? If there's none, we'll end this meeting now. Zainab, is there any comments, last comments?
No comments from my side. I was answering a few of the questions that were in the answer panel, but I believe that if anyone has any additional questions, please feel free to email me and get in touch with me.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for the opportunity and for the interest in the work that we do.
Thank you very much. Carolina? Carolina, any closing remarks?
Yes, thank you for the opportunity. And of course, I will be available if you have more questions or if you want to be in contact with us.
Thank you very much. Eugene?
Thank you very much. Thank you for the opportunity and the invitation to this this meeting. Thank you to know you, and please contact me if you have any question regarding the fertilizer code and else, etc. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Rosa?
Hello, everybody again. As my colleagues said, I will be answering of any doubt. I was replying some doubts through this chat, and yeah, do not hesitate to contact me. And I wish you a very nice evening, and thank you very much.
Thank you very much, and thank everyone. See you next year.